chairperson. I'm not the chairperson, so he said he's on his way. In a couple of minutes, he should be here. So, with your permission, can we wait for another couple of minutes, right? As soon as he comes.
Problem.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I was here yesterday at that young scholars meeting. I got to know some of the names and the faces correlations. But can we go around quickly once again? Laura and Sitlali, right?
Yes.
Exactly the institution. Can you just mention the institution?
Oh, yes, Instituto Mora,
Okay.
Mora Institute,
Okay. Okay.
as a public research center in Mexico. And my name is Citlali Ayala Martinez.
Okay.
Yes.
So you have dropped the middle name.
It's not a middle name, it's my family
Family
name,
name, okay.
Ayala, and the second one, Martinez.
Okay.
No problem at all.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, good morning. My name is Isaias. I'm from Ethiopia. So in Ethiopian tradition, you can just call me by my first name.
Okay.
Yes, I'm a political counselor at the Embassy of Ethiopia in Pretoria, South Africa.
Wonderful. Which year were you here at RIS?
I am alumni 2017 ITEC program.
Oh my God, you have a lot to tell us. Yes, can we go around quickly?
Sarah, which year were you? Good morning, sir. Good morning, colleagues. My name is Adriano Timosi. I'm from Brazil, and I have been here in 2016 with Sarah, and I work for FAO. I just started
Okay.
a few weeks ago.
Sure, you're having a lot to share with each other, meeting after years. Yourself?
I work for Institute of Agricultural Science for Southern Vietnam in Ho Chi Minh City.
Okay.
Nice
Thank you.
to meet you all. Yes.
Good morning. I'm Nargis Akhtar Dolly, Deputy Secretary, now working, I'm from Bangladesh and now working in the Ministry of Science and Technology. I have completed Science Diplomacy course in this year, January,
Okay.
from
Okay.
RIS. Thank you.
Excellent.
Good morning, I'm Tlik Duha from Tunisia. I'm editor-in-chief with the Tunisian News Agency.
Okay.
And well, I have a master in science politics from the University of Tunisia.
Okay. Are you finding things to have changed around this building and in Delhi?
Sorry?
Are you finding a lot of change in Delhi or around? No?
No, not
You
too
didn't
much.
have time to.
2 years ago we were here, so not too much. But
Not too much.
Not too much. I can, how to say.
Only the people that you.
I don't feel.
Much change.
Strange,
Huh?
no.
Only the people that you interacted have got little older.
Yeah, I'm the oldest from all students here. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Nunufar Stepanyan. I'm from Armenia. I work at the Ministry of Emergency Situations, and I am PhD student of political sciences.
Okay, thank you. We started just a round of introduction. I welcome the chairperson.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Juliana Oyola. I'm from Peru, but I'm currently a doctoral student at the University of Queensland in Australia. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Daniel Ricardo Perez Valerino. I am from Cuba and Director of International Relations of a biopharmaceutical company. And I was in January 2018 in the Science Diplomacy course here in
Excellent.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Daniela Smith. I'm from the IORA Secretariat based in Mauritius. I'm a project officer focusing on maritime safety and security, renewable energy and disaster risk management. I've been an ITEC student last year, 2018, for science diplomacy. Thank you.
Yesterday I heard your powerful presentation. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Chanda Ashley Mwali. I'm from Zambia. I was a former alumni for South-South Cooperation in 2016. Thanks.
Good morning. I am Aditya Sangle. I am presently studying a Masters in International Affairs from Jindal University. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Zhenbo. I come from China. I'm working in the Institute of South Asian Studies. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Pratyush. I was associated with RIS as a researcher for close to 3.5 years, and now I'm doing my PhD at University for Peace in Costa Rica.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Sarah Boroma. I'm from Zimbabwe, and I work for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Currently, I'm on foreign service in Washington, D.C. I'm the Minister Counselor, Deputy Head of Mission for our embassy in Washington. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Aline Riso. I'm a research assistant at IPEA, Institute for Applied Economic Research, and I'm PhD candidate at Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. And I am ITech alumni of 2017 class.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maria Ntembwa. I work for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Zambia. I'm a desk officer, peace and security, and I'm happy to be here. I was here last year, class of 2018. Thank you.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Cristel Nájera. I am from Guatemala, and I am an ITech alumni from South-South Cooperation, year 2017. And I am the current head of international cooperation for a non-profit organization in Guatemala.
Good morning, everyone. I am Hebatullah Adam. You can call me Heba. I am from Egypt. I have participated in the ITech program this year in February, March, and I'm working as assistant professor of economics at OP Jindal Global University now in School of International Affairs. I've just joined in mid-July. Yeah. So I have returned fastly to Egypt, to India, I'm sorry.
Just mention your name. They are the two discussants who help us steering forward the discussions.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Laura Weisbich. I'm from Brazil. I work for a São Paulo-based think tank called South-South Cooperation Research and Policy Center, short ASU. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. I'm Sheshadri Chari. I'm from the RIS and member of the board of the RIS.
He's one of the leading visionaries and thinkers, and he also advises the present government as and when they are asked to give opinion. Here is Citlali Martinez. She started
yes,
the
yeah,
introduction.
I started. Professor researcher at Instituto Mora.
Just give us the name so that people would know in the last. Yes. Can we have the names? Rawat Saab, just, I think they know you, but some of them may not. Yes, just.
I'm Dr. Arun Thakur. I'm from the Trivandrum University, Nepal, Central Department of Management, and still this time I am Executive Director of the Center for Economic Development and Administration, Trivandrum University. It is a research center for the country.
I am Dr. Sangal, former advisor Planning Commission, now known as Niti Aayog, and a UN consultant on environment, poverty alleviation, and development planning. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sushil Kumar. I am working at our RIS as a consultant.
Very good morning. I am Dr. Syed Mehrul Hassan. I am founder director of United Reformers Organization and prominent NGO at Bhopal, Central India.
Thank you. Colleagues and friends, the purpose of putting two senior people in the chair in this session is to allow the elderly generation to know what the contemporary situation is and how the young generation thinks about it. And that was the basic purpose that we are here. And I would like to hand over.
I'm part of the younger generation.
Well, that's true. We all try to be young at heart. Would you like to say some introductory remarks? You know, we make a departure from the earlier sessions because we don't want the chair and the co-chair to give a perspective and set the context and all that. Let's hear the presentation, and you should have as much time as possible. But you have to see to it that we have enough time for discussion. So could we say that 7 to 8 minutes for the initial presentation? Laura, I think that should be enough. We can go round, and I believe that all the paper presenters are present here so that we'll have at least half an hour for good discussion. Okay? So we can start with Ms. Adam, Hebatullah Adam from Egypt, you said. Okay. She's currently in India at a leading university, Indian university. Now you take over.
I have already introduced myself, so I just go to talk directly about my paper. My paper, my research, its title is India, Africa Partnership for Sustainable Development, an insight into India's South-South and Triangle cooperation in Africa. So, considering the global role of India and its existence in the global South and the global is our new global world, and as a new global donor, I have seen that it is important to study how India is working as a player in global South cooperation, and I have focused in my paper on Africa, the existence of India in the African continent. So this paper has been divided into three main parts, but the main focus of my paper is to introduce India's approach to South-South and Triangle cooperation at first, and then I am analyzing India-Africa Development Cooperation Partnership and how it can be used to foster the achievements of the Global Agenda 2030. So as I was telling you, at first, the early first point of my paper is talking about the literature review of South-South and Triangle cooperation, and I'm not going to go through these points because in the last days, all the professors have explained that point clearly to us. The second and third point, this is what I'm going to talk in more details about. First point is about India as a global donor. So we all know that until the mid-1980s, India was the world's largest recipient of foreign aid. But this fact has changed completely since the end of 2002, when the IMF has declared that India is going to participate as a donor or to fund the financial transaction plan. And the financial transaction plan is like a fund in the IMF to give loans to the countries that are in need or that they are having troubles in their balance of payments or the foreign exchange reserves. There is some problem or some issues that must be covered. So India, since the end of 2002, has shifted to be a donor, not a recipient of foreign aid. In 2012, India has started to create a new agency that is responsible of giving grants, giving assistance, and to monitor the ITEC program that we all have participated in. This agency is called the Development Partnership Administration, and it's an administration within the Ministry of External Affairs for multilateral assistance and exercises. For multilateral assistance, it is oversight by the Ministry of Finance, and the Ministry of Finance also is oversighting the loans that is given by the Exim Bank to to other countries, or is giving to promote export and import with the developing countries. So the India's South-South cooperation challenge, as you are seeing here in the graph, in the presentation, there is 4 main modalities. The first one is to give grant assistance, second through bilateral trade and investment, and third, lines of credit and capacity building and training. And I'm going to speak in details about how this has been channeled to the African continent. But returning to this point in the graph, who are the top developing countries that are receiving aid from India? For sure, the neighboring countries are having the largest share of the global development of developing assistance from India. Especially Bhutan is having or is receiving more than 60%. The rest is going to Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, and Nepal. And the African countries are coming, or the African continent is coming at the 5th place. Or the 5th rank by getting 3.68 or around 4% of the developing assistance, cooperation assistance from India. So that's why I'm focusing here on Africa, which is my continent. So first of all, as I was telling you here in the graph, India, these are the modalities that India is using to channel cooperation assistance to developing countries through South-South cooperation. First one, we have the India-Africa trade and investment. If you are going to take a look to statistics, we are going to see that Africa is the 4th largest trading partner with India. Bilateral trade volumes has reached 7.2 billion in 2001, and later in 2017 it has significantly rise to around $60 billion. In order to accelerate or to intensify the bilateral trade between Africa and India, India has or the Indian government has undertaken different initiatives. I'm just going to mention 2 of these initiatives. In more details are in paper. The first one is Focus Export Promotion Program in Africa, and that program is like facilitating to open channels of talk between the Indian investors, the Indian traders, and the African by having exhibitions or business-to-business meeting. Also, the African businessmen are coming to India to know the opportunities. And we have also the India's Export-Import Bank, who is extending loans and supports to the Indian traders to have more trade, especially with the African countries. And the Exim Bank has launched also supporting an initiative called Supporting India's Trade Preferences for Africa. So here, why I am mentioning the India's Africa trade and investment, because India is giving some preferences to the African country to have more trade and investment with. For the investment, India is the 7th largest investor in Africa, and the overseas foreign direct investment of India in Africa has reached 5.5 billion accordingly to the latest statistics. For India's Africa lines of credit, Africa is prioritized region, and accordingly to the latest statistics, we do have 186 lines of credit with 42 African countries. Of total amount 10.5 billion in 17 years from 2002 to 2019. I am coming to the last modality of channeling assistance to African countries that India is adopting, and this is the most important from my point of view, is the India capacity building training and grant assistance to Africa. And India is channeling this through 3 modalities or 3 important tools. First, there is grant in aid projects, training and capacity building, and humanitarian and disaster relief assistance. for example, our ITEC program, it goes in that third one, which is the training and capacity building assistance or facilities that India is giving to African countries. But there is other things, not only the ITEC program, like establishing vocational training centers, IT park. We do have also in Africa, India is having the Pan-Africa e-network, and to give supplies to educational center like IT equipment, medical assistance, and so on. So what is the conclusion of my paper? Actually, if I will go back to the title of my paper, is telling India-Africa Partnership for Sustainable Development, and inside into the India South-South and Triangle cooperation in Africa. So how can the partnership with that India is having with African country to work on fostering the reach or the attain of the sustainable development goals? From my point of view, is by focusing on the training and capacity building, especially in all these ITEC programs, the training, the scholarship, the IT park, for example, the business incubator. So my recommendation is to increase number of scholarship giving to the African content, promote digital transformation in Africa, supporting SMEs in Africa, just like I was telling, by having more business incubators, or by extending, sharing knowledge with the African businessmen, and empowering youth, increasing India's engagement in building scientific and technological human capital in Africa, increasing grants and assistance, especially in health issue, because you know that in Africa there is some countries that are having deadly spread disease. So this is going to help more and to help Africa to reach the sustainable development goals. Okay, thank you all for listening.
You know, Ms. Hebatullah Adam is drawing our attention to a very, very important fact, that in 1955, when the concept of South-South cooperation was institutionalized at the Bandung conference, most of the southern countries are more or less at the similar level of deprivation, underdevelopment. But what she's pointing out is that over time, inequality within South has gone up, and certain countries have emerged which have slightly greater capacity of providing capital assistance, capacity building, investment. And I'm very happy that you brought it out, the role of India. But I must tell you, India is a country of argumentative Indians. Would certainly like to hear good things, but we would certainly like to have a critical appraisal. We don't want to get it from the newspaper. These are our ambassadors in a way, should be in a position to bring in the criticism, the role of the Indian investment, trading, and other things. If there are certain lacuna deficiencies, we should be able to put in the forward-looking perspective. Well, that's a suggestion to all the participants present here, that let us bring out the issues dispassionately. You know, although bonhomie is a good thing in a conference, but nonetheless, a critical appraisal should not be sacrificed. May I now request Mr. Esaias Tegigne to make the presentation? 7 minutes. You just set the standard for others also.
So, thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. First of all, I don't want to miss this opportunity to extend my gratitude for being invited into this very important forum and for being able to present a paper as well. So thank you, Raes, DG, and everyone who has been involved in this endeavor. The topic of my presentation is the changing face of development cooperation in the era of SDGs in developing countries, overhauling North-South and maximizing South-South cooperation. The adoption of Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development has presented the international community with a unique opportunity to lift the world up the ladder of social and economic development, as they say, where no one is left behind. Or as His Excellency Minister Goyal has put it, where the benefits reach to the last man at the bottom of the pyramid. This tremendous opportunity in the progress of humanity, however, needs a lot of rethinking, restructuring, and bringing about paradigm shift in the landscape of development cooperation. On the part of individual governments, it requires political commitment, prioritizing SDGs in their national development programs, and nurturing effective partnerships with other governments and international organizations. Developing countries in the global south, I'm not strictly following this PowerPoint, so I would like to make my presentation from my notes. So developing countries in the global south have now more options to maximize their international development partnerships. However, it's important to note that the issue is not about choosing the south over the north or vice versa. It's rather about maintaining a careful balance between all sources of development cooperation and utilizing them efficiently towards the advancement of national agendas, including the SDGs. So it's precisely because of this fact that the approach to this paper is a kind of joint endeavor towards overhauling North-South cooperation and maximizing South-South cooperation. So when we talk about overhauling North-South cooperation, we are basically talking about the downsides of North-South cooperation and how we can improve on them. Some of them we can tap experiences from South-South cooperation. In that regard, the first thing I would like to talk about is the issue of political interference. In the past 2 days, we had some wonderful presentations by many prominent speakers, and some of them have alluded to the fact that political interference is in fact part and parcel of the issue of aid. Aid is related to foreign policies of countries, and foreign policies are basically mechanisms to promote national interest. Therefore, it's understandable that aid is essentially inherently political by its very nature. Nothing illuminates the relationship between aid and politics more than the statement made by Nikki Haley, US permanent representative in the United Nations Security Council, when many countries rejected US's decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. She said that, let them vote against us and we will save a lot. However, it should be noted that promoting national interest through the politics of aid in the eyes of the northern countries and promoting the genuine demands of recipient countries are not necessarily mutually exclusive. When the North engages developing nations in terms of development cooperation, it must differentiate on which lines of support must be subject to politicization and which others may not be. A good example is that some of the aids related to SDGs can be spared of strings attached as opposed to, for example, military assistances. We can talk about lack of mutual respect and partnership, lack of ownership. I don't want to go to details in the interest of time. The issue of capacity building is also there. The issue of rethinking ODA and FDI, this is a very important point. I would like to say something about it. As you all know, ODA has a crucial role in the achievement of Agenda 2030 for developing countries, and this is because other public and private sources of finance are largely absent in those countries. However, developing countries need FDI also. Continents such as Africa are not just for humanitarian assistance and security cooperation alone. They have the resources, the useful population, growing economy, and everything that is required to attract FDI from the North. So development cooperation institutions of the global North should take it incumbent upon themselves to make sure that they encourage their private sector to go out and invest in continents such as Africa and other developing countries. The other issue is the issue of one size fits all. We all know about this matter. South-South cooperation, in fact, fares better in this issue, and North-South cooperation should tap some lessons from South-South cooperation. The last point is illicit financial flows. This is again important. I would like to bring some worrying statistical facts to your attention, ladies and gentlemen. In the past 50 years alone, Africa has lost more than $1 trillion in illicit financial flows. This is according to African Union and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa joint study published in 2018. This sum is roughly equivalent to all the ODA that Africa has managed to get during the same period. Annually, Africa continues to lose about 50 billion US dollars to illicit financial flows annually. So arguably, combating illicit financial flows is one of the crucial areas that the North-South cooperation can look into so that the impact of cooperation can be beneficial to developing countries. The North should heed to the suggestion that the main sources of illicit financial flows from developing countries are basically multinational corporations whose headquarters are in the capitals of northern countries, and the money is also stacked in financial institutions in northern countries. So disproportionate focus on corrupt Africa leaders and corrupt practices in Africa, although it is to some extent true, but disproportionately focusing on this matter is basically to miss the forest for the trees. Having said that, we can mention some points on how to improve South-South cooperation itself in the achievement of SDGs by talking about some specific thematic areas, such as the policy area, bringing a building of institutions and implementation capacity, the issue of science, technology, and knowledge transfer, and also financing the SDGs, because again, southern countries can play a very prominent role in this regard, despite the fact that most of the finances for SDGs is still coming from northern countries. As a conclusion, North-South cooperation is losing steam and in its central position and needs to be refurbished with fresh ideas and practices. And as I have tried to point out, some of these fresh ideas and practices can be brought from the experiences of South-South cooperation. And there is a room for improvement for South-South cooperation itself in quite a few thematic areas, including those that I mentioned. Joint action in improving the effectiveness of both North-South cooperation and South-South cooperation within the context of SDGs can help tackling the challenges as identified by the BAPA Plus 40 outcome document. Developing nations need to keep a dynamic equilibrium in their relations with both the global North and the global South. They should not enter into kind of trade-offs in their foreign relations between these two different dimensions of cooperation. And also, developing countries should give due attention to the salient and specific differences between and among different partners, both from the North and the South, so that this could help them craft tailored engagement strategies for more effective cooperation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Besides. Thanks for telling us that Africa's social and economic scenario now is much different from what Franz Fanon wrote in Wretched of the Earth in the 50s, with a preface from Jean-Paul Sartre. There are developments, dynamisms, and certainly the issue that you talked about, the perspective of future for collaboration and cooperation, needs to be discussed. We'll take these issues up. May I now request Ms. Christelle Chera to make the presentation? 7 minutes, right? Thank you.
Good morning to all. I would like to start telling you a little bit about my presentation. I think I based this presentation through my professional experience in the field. As I told you before, I work in a nonprofit organization in the third sector in Guatemala, in the public health sector. So this presentation is going to be a little bit more about how, or what's the role of the capacity building programs into the reinforcement and public health policies in local communities, which is my area of expertise. Well, first of all, we are all aware that global public health is one of the biggest challenges that we are facing currently. Communities and nations struggle every day to improve the quality of access in public health, And from large and wealthy nations to small nations and poor ones, the main concern continues to be how to improve healthcare globally. Fighting disease and improving healthcare programs through the world is one of the biggest concerns, and because currently outbreaks of epidemics, viruses and fighting disease, well, it's something that all nations has to deal with. A large proportion of the population of the global south lacks access of affordable quality healthcare. And the issues of the good governance and better management of the resources are key to strengthen the public health systems. Well known are the capacity building programs that cooperation agencies in South nations have implemented worldwide to address the issue of public health. And I think this is something that was brought into or through South-South cooperation, and it's something that has contributed positively to the Sustainable Development Goals. Also, there's an existing debate between preventative curative health care system, and in which to invest more is something that all nations must to be inquire in. So, as I was telling you, the main purpose of my article was to examine the effectiveness of the industrial human resource capacity building as a source of South-South cooperation policy and the positive impacts that this reinforcement in public health has had through the time. I'm not going to go inside of much because, well, I discussed many cases in specific through the time and how the capacity building system and programs have evolved. But I would like to stand up 3 important things. First of all, that the capacity building programs are a main source of know-how, that the technical cooperation between nations is very important to the exchange of knowledge, and this mutual exchange of knowledge is a good practice to accelerate sustainable human development. Many of the regions of South nations have become active proponents of South-South partnerships, and that has helped to strengthen their capacity in different areas of international aid. Public health is one of them, and I would like to give some examples of this that has contributed to the Sustainable Development Goals. First of all, for Sustainable Development Goal number 3, in terms of good health and well-being, we could mention the 20,000 Cuban doctors that have been working in recent years as primary care practitioners and specialists in local communities of rural areas of Venezuela, South Africa, Haiti, Pakistan, Guatemala, and Bolivia. It also has contributed to Sustainable Development number 4, which is quality of education. And for this, I can give you the example that in 2008, the Lao People's Democratic Republic came together with Australia and Thailand in partnership with the Thai Red Cross to strengthen an HIV nutritional project. More than 50,000 cases has been brought up and treated fairly after this partnership. Also, for Sustainable Development Goal number 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, there's actually many examples of how South-South cooperation has been improving in this specific Sustainable Development Goal. But I would like to mention the Global Alliance for Vaccination and Immunization, which Brazil, China, India, and South Africa have committed with over 40 million in total, supporting activities of the Global Fund of Fighting AIDS and Diseases.
Another couple of minutes, if you have. Okay.
This is just the last one. And for the last, Sustainable Development number 17, the Partnership for Goals. And for this, the Mais Doctors program from Brazil that was launched in 2013 with the collaboration of PAO to help facilitate large scale of participation of Cuban doctors because of the need of a population in Brazil. So there is existing future challenges, and I believe that South-South cooperations through these capacity building programs can enhance possibilities of preventing healthcare. They also can contribute to the production of manufactured items at local level. Research, it's key and very important, especially because Southern nations understand their needs and Southern nations understand how to deal with some problematics. So it's really important that that knowledge and that research is shared between the nations. And of course, as a nonprofit practitioner, I would say, I think a future challenge must be addressed in terms of enhance the relations with nonprofit organizations and nonprofit sector, because at the end, I think these organizations in most of third world countries are the ones who are investing and executing the projects in the local communities every day, and who are actually facing the real needs of public health care. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Due to the constraint of time, I straight away invite Ms. Adriano. She's... Yeah? Adriano. Oh, sorry. You shifted your place, yes, sir. Go ahead. Just make it, we're running short of time, make it 7 minutes, huh?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, colleagues. First of all, I'd like to thank RIS and friends from RIS. I've been coming here for several years now, and you are part of my family, so thank you very much. In my presentation, I will make very short comments. We can also discuss after on the... My main objective in this research was to study the role of Global South coalitions in multilateral negotiations. I have been working for 10 years in Geneva in several international organizations, but also before being dedicated my life to development issues. So I'm a son of a small farmer in Brazil, so development issues has been part of my entire life. The main objective was, the main motivation was to see the challenges that developing countries faces in multilateral negotiations, to see what are the key priorities for developing countries, but most important, why we should remain united, why there should be a G77 and China, why there should be a non-aligned movement in negotiations, when many would say we have a different time in the international context, that interests are diverging in the South. I disagree, because the main interest of developing countries is to reach development. As far we do not develop, as far we do not give a dignified life to our people, there will be a challenge of development. And we must be united, because the common interest of developing countries, in my view, is to reach development. And those in the North that are engaged, and there are many engaged, they should come with us. Because as we know, we face a moment of strong difficulties in international arena. We have economic problems and economic crisis going on, north, south. We have environmental problems, we have political problems, protectionism, unilateralism, disengagement from multilateralism. by some powerful countries that is disrupting the entire international system. So my main objective here was to reaffirm the role and the importance of the Global South coalitions so that we leverage our negotiating power, we have more bargaining power to talk in a more frank way with developed countries. Because being 10 years in this area of negotiations, I do believe there is a lot of people really interested to the main goal of development. But there is also a lot of people who may not be interested to see developing countries to reach the level of development that we deserve. So I will focus on some of the key issues very briefly, and then we can bring back in the discussion. So South-South cooperation. South-South cooperation, we just had the BAPA in Buenos Aires. We have an outcome document. We have to implement this document. So what G77 China was the main negotiator has to do about it? We have to monitor the implementation. We have to make sure that the UN implement South-South cooperation in all its agencies and the triangular cooperation. We have to make sure that the commitments of developed countries in supporting the UN are also maintained, because as you know, many countries are now not promoting sufficient financing to the UN. So South-South cooperation, G77, we must push those countries to reaffirm their commitment. As I said, the G77 China, as you may know, is the largest group that negotiates in the UN on economic and development and finance issues. We have 5 chapters in several locals in New York, in Paris, in Geneva, in Nairobi, in Vienna, and in Rome. So those chapters are coalition of countries that get together to push a common agenda on the negotiations. Another issue that is very important this year, a priority for developing countries, is financing for development. When you talk about finance for development, one has to recognize in a very frank and candid way that we, the official development assistance, in my view, and I hope you also share, is not a charity. It's a commitment due to historical debt of developed countries, because countries in the north, they benefited from decades of colonization. But then you can come and tell us, look, this is over, you had a few decades with a stable, independent, democratic or not government, but you failed. It's easy to come and say it in this way, but we, since the 70s, we have an agreement that northern countries should give 0.7% of GNI to development. We have several G7 meetings, one very historical meeting in Gleneagles in Scotland, 2005, I believe, that they committed another $50 billion for development. So another summit on the food crisis a few years ago, another commitment. So did we receive this money? Most of it never. So they may come now and say, South-South cooperation, you're promising this. We are not promising. That's why we say that measuring South-South cooperation should be different way of the North-South cooperation. I'm very happy to hear the colleague from OECD that we have to reform development cooperation. This is good. I also agree. But at the same time, I also believe that the UN should have a more important role in evaluating all types of cooperation. Because, as you may know, UNCTAD is an organization that was created by developing countries, and the G77 China has always tried to defend UNCTAD. But what happens is that wherever UNCTAD comes to talk about ODA, donor countries will block UNCTAD to work. They say, you do not have the mandate. Mandate to development cooperation is with OECD. So why should South-South cooperation be with the UN? Why should be with the UN if they do not allow us in the UN to also discuss on OJ? So just to conclude on this part, OJ is a very important element, colleague just said from Ethiopia, and must be fulfilled. So Global South Coalition must work united to make sure that development goals, development commitments are fulfilled. And partners in the North must work in a very frank manner to make sure that those commitments are fulfilled. That's my belief. 2 more minutes. Okay, so international tax cooperation, just said now, is another issue that's growing a lot. Developing countries, we are pushing that we have a forum and a venue on the UN that could debate and discuss more on these issues, because as Esaias just said, we lost a lot of money from multinational companies that did not pay taxes in developing countries, particularly in LDC countries. This is a priority for the Global South Coalition that I would say. Another one, transfer of technology. As you know, climate change is a big issue, and we do need technology for adaptation, we do need technology for coping with this challenge. Going back on climate change, an important achievement of the G77 channel, the Global South Coalition, is that we managed to guarantee a loss and damage clause for which rich countries they would pay for developing countries that are affected by climate change. Because as we know, most of our countries did not contribute too much. So we managed to secure this loss and damage clause in the agreement, Paris Agreement, but as you know, everything is more or less on the air, on the Paris Agreement now, because of some countries are leaving. Sustainable development, and also mainly from Rio 92, developing countries working together managed to get the common but differentiated responsibility principles, which now again is under attack. So, as I said before, we must work together to guarantee that we have reforms in the international system that creates an enable environment to development. So that's the main message of my paper. We must remain together. Whatever the differences are, we must remain together. So how I see it as a challenge now for the future. We need greater unity, because there is be a lot of pressure to break the coalition. We need greater coordination and preparation. RIS is an important organization that can contribute. Everybody here can contribute, north, south. So we need a strong research basis. We need also greater outreach, because nobody knows about G77, a part of delegates working in their missions in Geneva or New York. We need to work more to make sure that the message of developing countries as a coalition reaches everybody, and everybody can contribute to enrich our message. So I just want to finish the one. So the main issue that I believe, and I said, I believe that these coalitions, they must remain there. We must contribute for these coalitions to be strengthened. And just to finish, I do not have a criticism about India, because India has been a key leader in multilateral diplomacy. So climate change, access to medicine, and WTO, food security. So I'm sorry that I cannot attend your request. And just to finish, we are celebrating the decade of family farming. And as I said, I'm a small farmer in Brazil, so we should all work together to promote this decade. Countries are expected to develop the national plans for family farming. So you can visit the website of FAO. There is a lot of information. Thank you very much, and thank you for...
May I now request Ms. Maria Tembo to make a presentation? So, you're a top talent. You have